Hi, my name's Dr. Kapil Amarasinga, and this is the 4th of February 2020 episode of the Part-Time Show, brought to you in conjunction with the Particle Project. The Particle Project! Okay, enough similes. So today's episode is going to focus on stuff that's completely not related to crypto and not related to the Particle Project at all. I know that may come as a bit of surprise to some of you guys that might be looking forward to this, but hey, this is how we roll. In fact, the thing I wanted to talk today was a little experiment I've been running. Actually, it's one I've been doing over the last few years at work. But before I get into it, I want to tell you how it came about. So just bear with me, because it is actually relevant to a lot of the stuff that I do. It's actually relevant to a lot of stuff that I feel we're doing. I feel it is anyway. So I'm going to tell you a few stories. So just a little bit of background to those of you who don't sort of know me. I'm an emergency medicine doctor. I've been practicing for about 9 years. I've worked in all sorts of hospitals across the UK. And there's a particular story from a few years ago when I was very junior that really stuck in my head. Now, I was initially doing general medicine at a hospital in North London, and we had this patient. She was in her mid-late 70s, and she was in hospital for about 3 months. And in the time that she was there, she had 9 chest infections. So pretty much every 2 weeks, we'd be treating her for a chest infection. She'd get better for a couple of days, a day or two usually, and then boom, right back into a chest infection. And we kept treating her every time and kept her in hospital until she died. That really sucked because, she was bedbound. She needed a hoist to transfer her out of a bed. She was fed through a feeding tube in her tummy, which is actually why she kept getting the chest infections. She'd had a stroke previously, so her throat muscles were quite weak. Food would go from the feeding tube and into her tummy, and some of it would go up her throat and into her lungs, and that's why she kept getting chest infections. It was pretty horrible. Now, after this job, I actually moved on into my first ever job in emergency medicine, accident and emergency. And there's this one kid that came in one day. He was like 19, and he basically come in with a headache, and he was terrified he had a bleed on his brain because his mother had died of a bleed on his brain. And I looked at him, I felt really sorry for him. He didn't have a bleed on his brain, but where I was working, that part of London was really rough, council estates, and one look at this guy, and he just had no. He had he had so little compared to what I had. He had so little growing up. I could just tell. I've been there. And I was just sort of thinking, those 3 months we were treating that lady to give her incremental gains of existence of days, weeks, really, a couple of months, and the quality of life she was having with that, which wasn't really that great. I mean, she was confused and delirious half the time, and she had dementia underlying that. So what we were doing, it wasn't great. I looked at this kid, and I thought, the amount of money we spent on that lady in 3 months could have probably put this kid through a university education for about 3 years. Certainly would have been true at the time. And that kind of leads me on to my point, the one that I'm going to get to, which is that if you take an average person's life expectancy in a developed nation, it's around 75 to 80, 70 to 80. And if you kind of look at the data, and if you even just think about it, for the average person of that average life expectancy, the vast majority of their health and social care is going to be spent on the last 20 years of their life, the last 25% of their life. That's when the vast majority of their health and social care spending is going to be for the average citizen. Now, it's kind of this weird this perverse dichotomy I find where, you can be born into a society where some people are so fortunate and so lucky without realizing it. Some of them do, and some people are born and they have so many obstacles to face. And, the gradient of inequality is huge, right? But if you kind of look at the actual sum of health and social care that's spent on the average person with an average life expectancy in the last quarter of their life, I estimate it's probably going to be in the region minimum several $100,000, and realistically probably closer to several million pounds, British pounds. And I think that's really funny because it sort of led me into my thought experiment. It's one I've been asking people I've worked with for a couple of years now, always just to see. So here it goes. It's kind of a solution actually to the problem of the 19-year-old kid, by the way. But it's this. It's a belief. It's a social policy that I've suggested. And it's this. Everyone up to the age of 28 gets free health and social care. Okay? No exceptions. Everyone. But when you get to the age of 28, you're given a choice. Option 1, continue to receive free health and social care for the rest of your life, provided by the state, by the government. Option 2, take the average cost of health and social care spent per person of an average life expectancy, which I believe is in the region of several $100,000 to several million pounds, and that person can have it given to them as a one-off lump sum payment for them to do whatever the hell they want to, whatever they please. And yeah, the catch is they will never be entitled to any free health or social care by the state or the government. They can get private services, they can pay for their A&E attendances or hospital care, they can pay for whatever, they can invest in businesses, they can make more money with it, they can lose it all, doesn't matter. It's their money, it's their choice to make. But, if something happens to them and they don't have anything in place, tough. Option 3. Defer the decision by a year. So you're 28 or this policy's implemented and everyone's given the choice. And it's like, okay, the people who don't know what they want to do, they say, okay, let me defer it for another year. So then the lump sum gets a bit smaller, but they continue to receive free healthcare and social care for the next year. And then they get to decide if they want to make that choice again. And every year they defer, that sum keeps getting smaller and smaller. Make sense? How does this make you feel? When I first came up with it, it seemed to me like an ideal social solution. But I encourage you to ask other people, how it makes them feel. To me, I would ask this question, and I'm a great believer in personal freedoms, personal independence. I would take option B. I would personally take the lump sum in that scenario. I'd go be an entrepreneur. I'd just carry out my natural instincts. It'd be an extension of what I already do. I'd build businesses, create jobs, take out private healthcare plans, have everything in place. I'd arrange it all myself. I know that some people are going to take the option A. They'd continue to take free health and social care. Those people may already be older. Those people may have developed significant chronic diseases or have had disabilities or been in accidents or been born with things that they are going to need health and social care for. And they may say, right, it doesn't matter how much money you give me, I would like to continue having free health and social care because I need it, or because I see a real need for it and I don't want to take the risk of option B. And those who are on the fence, they'll pick option C. And to me, that's like the ultimate sort of libertarian idea. It kind of reconciles, the fear, the American fear about socialized healthcare. In the UK, it's the NHS. This stuff's given free. But right now, we've got a funding crisis in the NHS and in social care. People are really struggling to figure out how to keep this ball sort of rolling, how to keep it sustainable, how to give people what they want. For me, in a lot of my experiences, a lot of things I've seen in my time, there are a lot of people that don't want free health and social care. Having seen the things I've seen, going back to what I said with the big example with that lady, if I was ever like that, so sick and debilitated, I wouldn't want anyone to keep treating me. I'd deal with it. I wouldn't want to live in that kind of state. That would be unacceptable to me. Actually, a lot of doctors feel the same way. But yeah, I guess that's why I'm sort of saying this. This is actually an opportunity for you to think and see how this question makes you feel, and for you to ask other people this and see how it makes them feel. And you always get different answers. The one that always surprised me the most was you'd always get the occasional person who would just say, well, this is completely unacceptable. If you implement this, people are going to suffer and they're going to die. And I'd be like, so what? They've taken the lump sums, they've lived the lives they want to live, or at least the lives they feel they want to live, and then they've suffered and died. You know, I understand what they're saying. Some of these people will be drug addicts or get drug addicts and blow them up. I'm like, you can't always save everyone. I always like, look, I appreciate you have more empathy than me, and I'm an empathetic individual, but I appreciate you have more empathy. I just consider myself more pragmatic than you. And questions like this actually reveal your internal thought process. They reveal how you see the world. They reveal how you see and interact and treat people. And asking a question like this really helps you figure out how other people perceive, behave, and interact with the world. It gives you clues to their level of empathy. It's actually really, in my mind, it's a really good psychology test. It can be used as an empathy test. Actually, that's where it's more useful, because practically implementing something like this has so many other considerations. I once asked an accountant this, and she said, look, this is a ridiculous idea. Everyone's going to take option B. There's going to be so much money given out in lump sums. The currency is just going to be printed off like crazy, and you'll have hyperinflation of currency. And then I said, well, yeah. But then now I think, well, $1 trillion was printed off for rich people and corporation tax cuts in 2019. I think of economic policies like helicopter money and quantitative easing. I go, well, all right, I guess it's all swings and roundabouts. For me, this is about leveling the opportunity playing field that people are given. And it just addresses the underlying paradox that when we die, somehow that economic expenditure, if you think about it, in our final years, averaged out, there's not that much inequality. But when we live, when we're really young, when we're healthy, when we have opportunities, when we're still learning, and when we need those resources to make mistakes, that's when getting things can be the hardest. That's when you need a more level playing field. Anyway, I want you to think about it. There is a lot to think about. And, if you really like this video, just, support it, share it with your friends, go around, ask this question, run this little thought experiment with people, see how they feel, share the video with them, see how it makes them feel, and like it and spread it around. And, continue to follow me. I'll keep posting videos. I've got plenty of thoughts in my head. And, show your love and support for the Particle Project, because it's a great project, and, could really use people like you, looking into it and learning about it. I'm a big fan. Anyway, this has been another episode of the Part-Time Show, and it's been a real pleasure talking to you. I'll sign out and see you guys around for the next episode. Bye!